I died the night I found my fiancé Alessio in bed with my best friend Alara. My car couldn't handle the mountain curves through my tears. But death wasn't the end for me. I woke up 16 years earlier, with all my memories intact. This time, I wasn't alone. My entire family remembered everything too. They saw how Alessio and Alara manipulated me, isolated me from everyone who loved me. They watched Alara pretend to be my friend while sleeping with my fiancé behind my back. They discovered the truth I never knew. The pair weren't just having an affair. They were after my family's money. They planned to declare me mentally unstable, after marriage to control my inheritance. Now reborn, I won't suffer their betrayal again. My family has been silently watching them, gathering evidence, waiting for the perfect moment. They have no idea what's coming. I gasped awake, clutching my chest where phantom pain from a car crash still lingered. But instead of darkness, I found myself in my childhood bedroom with soft blue walls and a constellation ceiling I hadn't seen in 16 years. My heart raced as I stumbled to the mirror, shocked to see my 18-year-old face staring back. The calendar on my wall read May 12, 2007. This was impossible. I had been 34 just moments ago, driving away from my rehearsal dinner, tears blinding me after finding Alessio and Alara together in our apartment. The mountain road, the missed turn, the crash. I died. I know I died. Yet here I was, alive again, with memories of a life not yet lived. I ran my fingers over my younger face, free from the fine lines that had just begun to appear in my 30s. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, an ancient flip model I hadn't used in over a decade. 3 texts from friends about final exams next week. I was truly back at 18, before art school, before my career as a restorer, before I met Alessio, Ricci at his gallery opening and fell for his charming smile and passionate talk about Renaissance techniques. Before Alara entered my life, becoming my closest friend while secretly plotting to take everything from me. Walking downstairs in a daze, I found my family at breakfast. Grandmother Sophia was pouring coffee, Uncle Tiago reading his newspaper, and my brother Nico shoveling cereal into his mouth. They looked so young. My grandmother still had dark streaks in her silver hair. Uncle Tiago's beard showed no gray. Nico was barely out of high school. Sophia paused mid-pour when she saw me, studying my face with unusual intensity. Nico's spoon froze halfway to his mouth. Even Uncle Tiago lowered his newspaper slowly, eyes fixed on me with something like recognition. "You look pale, Tesoro," Sophia said carefully, "like you've seen a ghost." There was something in her tone, something weighted and deliberate, that made me pause. Could they possibly remember too? No, that was absurd. This whole situation was already impossible enough. "Just a weird dream," I managed to say, sliding into my usual chair. "I'm fine." Breakfast continued, but I caught them watching me when they thought I wasn't looking. Nico kept opening his mouth as if to say something, then changing his mind. Uncle Tiago asked oddly specific questions about my plans for the future, my interest in art restoration. Sophia squeezed my hand under the table, an inexplicable reassurance. That evening at dinner, Grandmother Sophia passed me the breadbasket and whispered, "This time, we won't make the same mistakes." I nearly dropped it. Before I could question her, she turned to ask Uncle Tiago about his court cases, leaving me to wonder if I'd imagined the whole exchange. 2 days later, Nico knocked on my bedroom door. "Hey Val, just a heads up. There's a new gallery opening downtown next week. Thought you might want to avoid it." My blood ran cold. The gallery opening. That's where I first met Alessio in my previous life. "Which gallery?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Ricci Contemporary. Some guy from Florence, I think." Nico watched my face with unusual intensity. "Probably not worth your time." He turned to leave, but I grabbed his arm. Wait, how do you know about that gallery? A strange look crossed his face, somewhere between relief and apprehension. So, you do remember. Those 3 words changed everything. You remember too? I whispered, afraid to hope. The future? My life? Alessio and Alara? Nico pulled me into a fierce hug. Thank God. We weren't sure when it would happen for you. Sometimes I thought we were all going crazy. We? My voice shook. All of us. The whole family. Grandmother, Uncle Tiago, me. We've been waiting for you to realize you're not alone. I collapsed onto my bed, overwhelmed. How? When? We all woke up on the same day, January 1st, about 5 months ago, with complete memories of the next 16 years. Your death hit us hard, Val. We were still grieving when whatever this has happened. Tears filled my eyes. You know, everything? About Alessio? About the way I died? Nico nodded grimly. Grandmother wants to have a family meeting. We've been waiting for you to remember. That night, we gathered in Sophia's garden, underneath the old olive tree where generations of our family had shared secrets. The warm May evening wrapped around us like a blanket as I looked at their familiar faces, all carrying the weight of knowledge they shouldn't possess. I don't understand, I began. How is this possible? Sophia took my hands in hers. We don't understand it either, Tesoro, but we have been given a great gift, a chance to right a terrible wrong. Uncle Tiago leaned forward, his legal mind already analyzing. We remember everything, Valentina, not just snippets or feelings. Every detail of how that snake and his accomplice systematically destroyed your life and isolated you from us, Nico added bitterly. They began sharing their pieces of the puzzle, things I'd never known in my previous life. Uncle Tiago explained how Alessio had convinced him that I needed space from family to grow as an artist. He said you requested I not attend your exhibitions. I believed him when he showed me messages supposedly from you. Nico turned his laptop toward me, revealing forged emails supposedly sent from my account, canceling family gatherings and declining invitations. I always thought you were just busy. He made sure we never saw how unhappy you were becoming. Grandmother Sophia wiped a tear. That woman Alara, she would visit me for tea and subtly suggest that you found my advice suffocating, that you were too kind to tell me yourself. I began to pull away, thinking I was respecting your wishes. The realization that their absence hadn't been abandonment, but calculated manipulation, broke something inside me. In my previous life, I'd felt so alone at the end, believing even my family had grown distant. All orchestrated by Alessio and Ilara. We should prevent him from ever meeting you, Nico argued, pacing around the garden. We could send you abroad, or I could make sure he never opens that gallery in the first place. No, Sophia's voice was firm. They destroyed Valentina. Once, this time we document everything. We let justice take its proper course. Uncle Tiago nodded in agreement. We have knowledge they don't. We can use that. My family began outlining their plan. Sophia would use her social connections to gather information on Alessio's background and business dealings. Nico would handle surveillance and technical aspects. Uncle Tiago would build a legal case, collecting evidence of fraud and manipulation. And what about me? I asked, heart pounding. Sophia squeezed my hand. You have the hardest role, Tesoro. You must play the unsuspecting lover once again. I shuddered at the thought of looking into Alessio's eyes, pretending I didn't know how he would betray me. Of smiling at Alara while knowing she plotted against me. I don't know if I can do that. You won't be alone this time, Nico promised. We'll be with you every step. A week later, I stood in Ricci Contemporary, surrounded by modern art and champagne-sipping patrons. My heart nearly stopped when I saw him enter, exactly as before. Alessio Ricci, tall and elegant in his charcoal suit, with that perfect smile that had once captivated me. He scanned the room with practiced casualness until his eyes landed on me examining a particular painting. Right on cue, he approached with the exact same line. "You have a luminous understanding of light." My stomach churned, hearing the words I'd once found so romantic, now knowing they were rehearsed, calculated. But I smiled back, beginning the performance of a lifetime. "Thank you. The artist has an interesting perspective." "Alessio Ricci," he said, extending his hand. "This is my gallery." I took his hand, feeling my family's eyes on us from various points around the room, silently supporting me. "Valentina Costa, pleased to meet you." The family meeting in Sofia's garden revealed far more than I had been prepared for. The morning light filtered through the olive branches as we gathered around the ancient wooden table, where generations of Costas had shared their secrets. This time, our secret spanned a lifetime that technically hadn't happened yet. "Your Alessio was quite thorough," Uncle Tiago explained, spreading documents across the table. "I found these in my study after we all remembered. Look at the dates." I examined what appeared to be emails from my account, declining Uncle Tiago's, invitations to family events, requesting space, even suggesting his presence at exhibitions made me nervous. "I never wrote these." "We know that now," he said, bitterness edging his voice. "I believed him when he said you requested I not attend your exhibitions, that you found my presence intimidating to potential buyers." Nico pulled out his laptop, showing me more digital evidence of my supposed withdrawal from family. "These were sent from an account that looked identical to yours. I never questioned it because the writing style matched yours perfectly. He must have studied your communications for months." Sophia placed a hand on my shoulder. "And Alara. That woman visited me regularly, always so concerned about you. She would casually mention how you found my advice about your career suffocating, but were too kind to tell me yourself." I closed my eyes, picturing Alara with her sympathetic smile and gentle voice, all while methodically cutting every support system from my life. "They isolated me completely. I never realized. By the time you died, we were barely in your life anymore," Nico said quietly. "The funeral was the first time I saw you in months. We should prevent him from ever meeting you," Nico continued, pacing around the garden. "I could hack into his finances, make sure the gallery never opens. Or we could send you abroad for a year." I considered it briefly, the temptation to simply run away from the pain that awaited me. But something stronger emerged instead. A desire for justice I hadn't felt in my previous life. "No." Sophia's voice was firm as she stood, her small frame suddenly commanding. "They destroyed Valentina once through isolation and manipulation. This time we document everything. We build a case so solid they can never escape it." Uncle Tiago nodded, his legal mind already at work. "We have the advantage of foresight. We know their playbook before they even open it." "We'll need evidence," I said slowly. "Concrete proof, not just our memories of a future that hasn't happened." They exchanged glances, and I realized they had already begun planning. "We each have roles to play," Sophia declared. "I will use my social connections to gather information on Alessio's background, his business dealings, his previous relationships. People tell me things. They always have." Uncle Tiago tapped the table decisively. "I'll build the legal framework, document every interaction, every potential fraud, every manipulation. By the time we're done, they'll face consequences beyond social humiliation." Nico grinned, a flash of the mischievous boy he'd once been. "And I handle surveillance. The digital trail, recording devices, monitoring their communications. Everything legal, of course," he added with a glance at Uncle Tiago. "But thorough." They all turned to me, and I felt the weight of what they were asking. "And what about me?" Sophia took my hands in hers. You, Tesoro, have the most difficult role of all. You must let Alessio court you again. Let him believe he is succeeding. Let Alara befriend you again. My stomach churned at the thought of looking into Alessio's eyes, pretending I didn't see the calculation behind his charm, of hugging Alara while knowing she plotted against me. I don't know if I can do that without breaking, I whispered. You won't be doing it alone, Nico promised, squeezing my shoulder. We'll be with you every step of the way. Any time it becomes too much, we're here. Think of it as a performance, Uncle Tiago suggested. The greatest role of your life, with the most satisfying final act. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. All right, but we need rules, boundaries. I can't just relive every moment of that relationship. We spent the rest of the morning outlining our plan. Sophia would host regular gatherings, inviting Alessio into our home where we could observe him more easily. Nico would set up subtle surveillance in my apartment and studio. Uncle Tiago would begin investigating Alessio's business dealings, looking for the financial irregularities he suspected had always been there. As for me, I would allow Alessio back into my life, but maintain boundaries that hadn't existed in my previous timeline. I would protect my heart behind a wall of awareness he couldn't penetrate. 1 week later, I stood in Ricci Contemporary, surrounded by the same modern art and champagne-sipping patrons as before. My hands trembled slightly as I fixed my gaze on a particularly striking canvas, positioning myself exactly where he would find me. Right on schedule, Alessio entered, scanning the room with practiced casualness until his eyes landed on me. My heart nearly stopped as he approached, so handsome in his charcoal suit, with that perfectly practiced smile that had once made me weak. You have a luminous understanding of light, he said, the same opening line he'd used 16 years ago, and would now use again. I forced myself to smile, to appear charmed rather than nauseated. Thank you. The artist has an interesting perspective. Alessio Ricci. He extended his hand. This is my gallery. I took his hand, feeling my family's eyes on us from various points around the room. Nico by the bar, Sophia charming a group of patrons, Uncle Tiago examining a sculpture nearby. Their presence gave me strength. Valentina Costa, pleased to meet you. The weeks that followed felt like walking through a memory, each moment, a ghostly echo of my previous life. Alessio called exactly when I expected, suggested the same restaurants, told the same stories about his childhood in Florence. I laughed at jokes I'd heard before, expressed surprise at revelations I'd already processed, all while keeping detailed notes of every interaction. The first time Alara appeared, exactly as scheduled at a charity auction 3 months into my relationship with Alessio, I nearly lost my composure. She looked exactly as I remembered, with her warm smile and effortless elegance, extending her hand to me with calculated friendliness. I'm Alara Vega. Alessio's told me so much about his talented new girlfriend. I shook her hand, fighting the urge to recoil. Lovely to meet you. She slipped into our lives with practiced ease, becoming my confidant, my support system, while systematically gathering information about me and my family. Just as before, she played the perfect friend, attentive and supportive, while I pretended not to notice her lingering glances at Alessio, the way their hands occasionally brushed when they thought I wasn't looking. 6 months into our charade, the strain began to show. After finding a text from Alara on Alessio's phone, the exact message from my previous life about meeting for coffee to discuss the surprise, I fled to my grandmother's house, collapsing in her kitchen. I can't do this, I sobbed as Sophia held me. I see him touch her arm when they think I'm not looking. I hear their inside jokes. It's like watching a replay of my own destruction. Sophia stroked my hair, her voice quiet but firm. You're stronger. This time, Tesoro. And you're not alone. We're gathering evidence every day. What if it's not enough? I asked. What if they still win somehow? They won't, she promised. The universe doesn't give second chances without reason. I returned to my apartment that night to find Nico waiting for me, his laptop open on my coffee table. I've been analyzing their communication patterns, he said without preamble. They're careful, but not careful enough. Look at this. He showed me records of calls between Alessio and Alara, always at specific times when they knew I would be occupied with work or family, text messages deleted from Alessio's phone but recovered through Nico's technical skills. We're building a case, he assured me. Every day they think they're getting closer to their goal. They're actually digging their own graves. I nodded, wiping away the last of my tears. How much longer? Just until the engagement, he promised. Once he proposes, we'll have everything we need. I thought of the proposal that awaited me, the identical words Alessio would speak, the ring that had once seemed so perfect and now represented nothing but betrayal. I can make it, I said, more to myself than to Nico. For justice, I can do this. 6 months into the charade, I watched history repeat itself with sickening precision. Alessio courted me with identical gestures to my previous life, taking me to the same romantic restaurants along the river, reciting the same poetic declarations about my talent and beauty. He even brought me to the cliffside vineyard at sunset, just as before, telling me how the golden light in my hair reminded him of Botticelli's angels. I smiled and blushed on cue, while inwardly cataloging each recycled line, each calculated touch. The necklace he gave me on my birthday, claiming it was specially designed, was the exact same piece he had given me before. I wore it with a grateful kiss, not mentioning I had seen him purchase an identical one for Alara 2 days earlier, caught on Nico's surveillance footage. You seem different sometimes, Alessio remarked one evening as we walked along the promenade. Like you're somewhere else entirely. I squeezed his hand, the picture of devotion. Just lost in how lucky I am to have found you. The words tasted like ash, but he beamed, satisfied with my performance. That night, I scrubbed my skin raw in the shower, trying to wash away the feeling of his hands on me. When Alara entered, our lives, exactly 3 months into the relationship as she had before, she embodied the perfect supportive friend. She brought homemade pastries to our brunches, remembered details about my favorite artists, offered fashion advice with seeming generosity. To anyone watching, she was the ideal friend, selflessly supporting my relationship while celebrating my successes. We should have lunch tomorrow, she suggested one afternoon at the gallery, her arm linked through mine. That new place on Via Key. Roma. I need your advice about something personal. I agreed, knowing exactly what the lunch would entail, just as it had 16 years ago. She would confide in me about a fictional breakup, strengthening our bond while subtly gathering information about my family's finances under the guise of discussing her own situation. The strain of pretending not to notice their secret meetings wore on me. I caught the same knowing glances between them, the same inside jokes poorly disguised, the same excuses for their absences. After finding a text from Alara on Alessio's phone, a message about meeting for coffee to discuss the surprise, that was word for word identical to my previous life, I fled to Sophia's kitchen. I can't do this, I sobbed, collapsing at her table. I see him touch her arm when they think I'm not looking. I hear their coded conversations. It's destroying me to watch it all happen again. Sophia held me, her wrinkled hands strong and sure. You're stronger this time, Tesoro. You're not alone anymore. She made me chamomile tea, adding a splash of something stronger from a crystal decanter. Every time it becomes unbearable, remember we are gathering evidence. Their arrogance will be their downfall. I sipped the tea, letting its warmth calm me. Sometimes I wonder if we're making a mistake. Maybe I should just confront them, end this torment. Justice requires patience, Sophia reminded me. and proper justice is what they deserve after what they did to you. My phone buzzed with a message from Nico. Emergency family meeting tonight. New information. When I arrived at Uncle Tiago's study that evening, the tension in the room was palpable. Nico paced near the window, his laptop open on the desk. Uncle Tiago reviewed documents with a deep frown, while Sophia sat perfectly still, her face unreadable. "What happened?" I asked, fear clawing at my throat. Nico gestured to his computer. "I found something we didn't know in our previous life, something that changes everything." On his screen were financial documents, spreadsheets, and what appeared to be banking records. "Alessio and Alara have been investigating our family's finances in detail," he explained, pulling up files showing my trust fund details, property assessments, investment portfolios. "This goes beyond a simple affair or social climbing, Uncle." Tiago pushed a legal document toward me. "They've been preparing for months. According to my sources, Alessio has consulted with lawyers specializing in conservatorship and mental health claims." The realization hit me like a physical blow. They're not just having an affair, they're planning to access my inheritance through marriage. Sophia nodded grimly. "And Alara has been gathering material to question your mental stability if you ever contested anything." Nico clicked through more files, showing email exchanges between Alessio and a psychiatrist discussing potential diagnoses that could be applied to someone showing certain behaviors. Behaviors that Alara was methodically documenting through her fake friendship with me. "They plan to declare me mentally unstable after the marriage," I whispered, horror washing over me. "To take control of everything." "Which explains why they isolated you from us so thoroughly in your previous life," Uncle Tiago added. "Without family support, you would have been completely vulnerable." This betrayal, deeper and more calculated than I'd imagined even in my darkest moments, transformed something inside me. My hands stopped shaking. My tears dried. The hurt crystallized into cold, clear resolve. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice steady. Sophia stood, straightening her shoulders. "We adjust our strategy. Valentina, you will begin subtly redirecting your assets, creating false leads about our family's wealth." Uncle Tiago nodded in agreement. "I'll prepare documentation protecting you from any potential conservatorship claims." "And I'll increase surveillance," Nico added, already typing rapidly. "Every conversation, every meeting, every document they share." For the next 2 months, I played my role with renewed purpose. I strategically mentioned non-existent family properties during phone calls I knew Alessio would overhear. I left falsified financial statements where Alara would find them during her visits. I created a fiction of wealth far beyond what my family actually possessed, watching as Alessio's and Alara's eyes gleamed with increasing greed. When Alessio finally proposed, exactly 9 months into our relationship as he had before, I was prepared. He took me to the rooftop garden of his building at sunset, champagne chilling in the same silver bucket, roses arranged in the same pattern. "Valentina," he began, dropping to one knee with practiced grace. "From the moment I saw you in my gallery, I knew you were different, special. The way you understand beauty, the way you see the world, it matches my soul in ways I never thought possible." I gasped on cue, my eyes widening with false surprise as he produced the emerald ring identical to the one I had worn before. "You are my muse, my heart, my future. Will you marry me?" For a brief, dangerous moment, I considered throwing the ring in his face, screaming the truth, ending the charade. But I remembered my family waiting, justice drawing nearer with each day. "Yes," I whispered, tears filling my eyes for entirely different reasons than he assumed. "Yes, I will marry you." He slipped the ring onto my finger, triumph flashing briefly in his eyes before being replaced by performed adoration. When he kissed me, I thought of the evidence waiting to be revealed, the case building against him, The reckoning to come. That night, my family celebrated with me privately, clinking glasses in Sophia's garden. The final phase begins, Uncle Tiago announced. The engagement. Party is where everything will be revealed. 1 month, Nico promised, squeezing my hand. Just hold on for 1 more month. I twisted the emerald ring on my finger, feeling its weight like a shackle. I've lived through this betrayal once before. I can endure it a little longer for justice. Sophia raised her glass. To justice deferred but not denied. As we drank to our secret purpose, I felt a strange calm settle over me. In my previous life, the engagement had been the beginning of my complete destruction. This time, it would be Alessio and Alara who would be destroyed, unraveled by their own greed and cruelty. All I had to do was play my part for just a little longer. As the engagement party approached, a subtle shift occurred in both Alessio and Alara. I caught them whispering frantically at gallery events, their expressions tense when they thought no one was watching. Alara checked her phone constantly, while Alessio spent hours locked in his office making calls that Nico's surveillance couldn't intercept. Something feels off to them, Sophia observed as we reviewed our plans in her garden. In your previous life, everything unfolded exactly as they wanted. This time, they sense resistance, even if they can't identify its source. I nodded, twisting, the emerald ring that felt increasingly like a prop. Alessio asked about my trust fund yesterday. He tried to make it sound casual, but there was an edge to his voice I've never heard before. Uncle Tiago frowned. They're growing impatient. According to my sources, Alessio has significant debts coming due. The gallery is barely staying afloat. That explains the urgency, Nico said, scrolling through data on his laptop. I've intercepted emails between them. Listen to this one. From Alara. We need to accelerate. The longer this drags on, the riskier it becomes. She suspects nothing, but her family is more involved than we anticipated. Sophia's eyes narrowed. She's afraid of losing control. In the previous timeline, they had completely isolated you by this point. Now they see us still very present. In your life. How will they respond? I asked, suddenly anxious. They'll escalate, Uncle Tiago predicted grimly. Be prepared. The closer we get to exposing them, the more desperate they'll become. He was right. 3 weeks before the engagement party, I noticed small things missing from my apartment, items reappearing in strange places. My medicine cabinet had been rearranged. My laptop showed signs of having been accessed while I was out. Then the evidence began appearing. A journal hidden in my dresser drawer, filled with increasingly paranoid entries in handwriting that mimicked mine, but wasn't. Disturbing sketches of Alessio with dark symbolism. Photos that appeared to show me following him at times when I had been elsewhere. They're building their case against you, Nico explained after examining the journal. Creating a paper trail of instability they can use after the marriage. I hate knowing she's been in my home, touching my things, I admitted, feeling violated. We had deliberately left minimal surveillance in my apartment, enough to document their intrusions without alerting them. The day before the engagement party, I received a call from Alara, her voice bright with false concern. Val, darling, I was thinking of coming over tonight to help you relax before the big day. I could bring wine. We could have a girls' night. You seem so tense lately. I knew exactly what this visit would entail. In my previous life, I had gratefully accepted her offer, waking the next morning feeling strangely groggy, unaware she had used the opportunity to plant final evidence around my apartment. That sounds lovely, I lied smoothly. But I promised grandmother I'd stay with her tonight. Traditional family blessing before marriage and all that. A brief pause. Oh, I didn't realize you were so close to your grandmother these days. We've reconnected recently, I said, picturing her frustration. Family has become very important to me. After hanging up, I called Nico. She'll try another approach. Watch my apartment tonight. Sure enough, Nico's surveillance caught Alara using her spare key to enter my apartment that evening. I watched the footage with my family, my blood boiling as she moved through my home with practiced familiarity, placing items in specific locations, taking photos of my personal belongings. The most disturbing moment came when she entered my bedroom, producing a large envelope from her bag. Inside were disturbing collages supposedly made by me, obsessing over Alessio and plotting against Alara herself. She planted them in my desk drawer, underneath art supplies. This is what they planned to discover during a concerned intervention after the engagement party, Uncle Tiago explained, his face grim. Claiming they found evidence of your instability and needed to get you help. I watched the footage in horrified fascination. She's so methodical, as if she's done this before. She probably has, Sophia said quietly. People like this rarely have just one victim. The final straw came when I decided to return to my apartment unexpectedly, knowing Alara might still be there. I needed to see her betrayal with my own eyes, not just through Nico's cameras. I entered silently, hearing movement in my bedroom. Alara stood with her back to me, arranging what appeared to be photographs in my bedside table, unaware of my presence until I deliberately stepped on the creaking floorboard. She whirled around, the photos clutched against her chest, eyes wide with shock. For a moment, neither of us spoke, the weight of her betrayal hanging in the air between us. Val, she began, recovering quickly. I was just dropping off some photos from our lunch last week. I wanted to surprise you. I could see the edge of the images, clearly doctored photos showing me in places I had never been. I simply smiled, pulling out my phone. I believe you, I said calmly, sending a text to my family. It's time. Confusion flickered across her face as I turned and walked out without another word, leaving her standing amid her scattered evidence. I imagined her frantic call to Alessio, their panicked recalculation. But it was too late. The trap was set, and they had walked into it perfectly. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the day of the engagement party we had all been working toward for months. Sophia supervised the transformation of our family villa into a wonderland of lights and flowers, just as we had planned. Caterers bustled about, setting up elegant displays of food and champagne. Everything is in place, Uncle Tiago confirmed, checking his watch. Security has been briefed. The presentation is ready. Nico adjusted his tie nervously. Are you sure we have enough? What if they somehow turn this around? Impossible, Sophia assured him. We have months of evidence, multiple witnesses, legal documentation. I stood before the mirror in my childhood bedroom, studying my reflection in the emerald green dress we had chosen specifically for this moment. Not white, not bridal, but the exact color of the ring Alessio had given me. A small symbolism he would appreciate right before his world collapsed. Are you ready, Tesoro? Sophia asked, coming to stand behind me. I met her eyes in the mirror. I've been ready for 16 years. Guests began arriving at sunset, filling the garden with laughter and conversation. I played my part perfectly. The radiant bride-to-be, accepting congratulations with practiced grace. Alessio stayed close by my side, his hand possessively at my waist, his smile never reaching his eyes. Ilara circulated among the guests, elegant in a silver dress that shimmered as she moved. She carried a small clutch that she kept patting, reassuringly, occasionally making eye contact with Alessio across the room. I knew what the clutch contained, the evidence she planned to reveal with reluctant concern after the toasts. As the evening progressed, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Soon the performance would end. Soon, justice would be served. Uncle Tiago gave me a subtle nod as the serving staff began distributing champagne for the toasts. Everything was ready. Alessio raised his glass, preparing to speak first as we had arranged. I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate our engagement. The day I met Valentina in my gallery, I knew she was special. Her beauty, her talent, her kind heart, they captivated me immediately. He continued with flowery praise, each word a lie that I had once treasured as truth. When he finished, the guests applauded warmly, unaware of the drama about to unfold. Alara stepped forward next, right on cue, her expression perfectly crafted into concerned reluctance. Before we continue celebrating, there's something difficult I need to share about my dear friend. She paused dramatically, patting her clutch. I've discovered something disturbing about Valentina's behavior recently, something I feel obligated to bring to light for her own well-being. Before she could continue, Sophia tapped her glass with a silver spoon, the clear ring cutting through the murmurs that had begun to spread. Before any revelations, our family has prepared a special presentation for the happy couple. Alara froze, confusion crossing her face as the garden lights dimmed and a projection appeared on the white wall of the villa. The moment of reckoning had arrived. The engagement party transformed our family villa into a wonderland of lights and flowers. I played my part perfectly, the blushing bride-to-be, radiant and unsuspecting in my emerald green dress. Alessio remained close, by my side, his hand possessively at my waist, occasionally kissing my temple for the benefit of onlookers. Alara circulated through the crowd with practiced grace, carrying a folder she occasionally patted reassuringly. I caught her studying me throughout the evening, a glint of triumph in her eyes whenever our gazes met. She had no idea what awaited her. None of them did. As champagne flowed and guests mingled beneath the twinkling garden lights, I felt a strange calm settle over me. 16 years of pain and betrayal were about to be avenged in a single evening. I saw Nico signal from near the villa wall, confirming everything was in place. Uncle Tiago nodded subtly from across the garden, while Sophia squeezed my hand as she passed. When the time came for toasts, Alessio stepped forward first, raising his glass with practiced elegance. I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate our engagement. The day I met Valentina in my gallery, I knew she was special. Her beauty, her talent, her kind heart captivated me immediately. He continued with flowery praise, each word a lie that I had once treasured as truth. When he finished, the guests applauded warmly, unaware of the drama about to unfold. Right on cue, Alara stepped forward next, her expression perfectly crafted into concerned reluctance. Before we continue celebrating, there's something difficult I need to share about my dear friend. She paused dramatically, patting her folder. I've discovered something disturbing about Valentina's behavior recently, something I feel obligated to bring to light for her own well-being. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Alessio feigned confusion, but I caught the flicker of anticipation in his eyes. This was their moment, carefully orchestrated to publicly establish my supposed instability. Before Alara could continue, Sophia tapped her glass with a silver spoon. Before any revelations, our family has prepared a special presentation for the happy couple. If everyone could direct their attention to the villa wall. Alara froze, confusion crossing her face as the garden lights dimmed. A projection appeared on the white wall of the villa, illuminating the night with evidence of their treachery. The first image showed Alessio and Alara meeting at a cafe 3 days after he and I had begun dating, their heads close together, his hand covering hers intimately. Then came surveillance footage of them entering a hotel, time-stamped during an afternoon when Alessio had claimed to be at a gallery meeting. Their conversations played with crystal clarity through speakers, positioned around the garden. Once we're married, I'll have access to her trust fund, Alessio's voice echoed across the silent crowd. The gallery is failing. I need that money within 6 months or everything collapses. And once we prove she's unstable, you'll control everything, Alara responded on the recording. I've been collecting evidence for weeks. Her family is completely oblivious. Gasps filled the garden as the footage continued. Years of their planning, their mockery of me, their calculated deception displayed for all to see. Financial records appeared, showing their inquiries into the cost of fortune, emails discussing the possibility of having me declared mentally incompetent after marriage. I watched Alessio's face drain of color, his champagne glass frozen halfway to his lips. Ilara stood motionless, the folder of fabricated evidence clutched against her chest, her mouth opening and closing without sound. The presentation continued relentlessly. Uncle Tiago had been thorough, including testimonies from people they had used and discarded in the past, former business partners Alessio had betrayed, even a previous girlfriend of his who described a similar scheme. Most damning of all was the footage from my apartment, showing Ilara planting evidence, arranging disturbing collages she had created herself, hiding a journal filled with paranoid entries in handwriting that mimicked mine. When the lights came back up, the garden remained silent for one long, breathless moment. Then Alessio lunged toward the equipment, shouting about manipulation and lies. Ilara began shrieking accusations, claiming the footage was doctored, that I was the unstable one, exactly as we had predicted. Security guards, hired specifically for this moment, moved smoothly to contain them. Uncle Tiago stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. Every piece of evidence presented tonight has been authenticated and legally documented. Multiple copies exist in secure locations. I stood from my seat, removing the emerald ring from my finger with deliberate slowness. The entire garden fell silent as I walked toward Alessio, who was now restrained by one of the security guards. "We remember everything," I said, my voice steady and clear. "Not just me, all of us. We've been watching you both since the beginning." Confusion replaced his anger. "What are you talking about?" "This isn't the first time you've done this to me," I continued, aware of the puzzled looks from the guests, but not caring. "But it will be the last." I dropped the ring at his feet. "You and Ilara plotted to destroy me, to take everything from me? You isolated me from my family, manipulated me, gaslit me, all while sleeping together behind my back. And for what? Money?" Ilara struggled against the guard holding her. "She's clearly delusional. This proves exactly what I was trying to tell everyone." Sophia stepped forward, her small frame commanding attention. "Ms. Vega, there are 7 witnesses who saw you entering my granddaughter's apartment using a stolen key. There is footage of you planting falsified evidence. There are bank records showing transfers between your account and Mr. Ricci's on 20 separate occasions." Alessio's face contorted with desperation. "Valentina, please. There's been a misunderstanding. I love you. Whatever you think happened, whatever they've told you, it isn't true." "Save your performances for someone who hasn't seen all your scripts," I replied coldly. Uncle Tiago nodded to the security team. "Please escort Mr. Ricci and Ms. Vega from the property. Their legal representatives will be contacted in the morning." As they were led away, Ilara continued screaming that I was insane, that I had manipulated my family against them. Alessio begged for a chance to explain, claiming he could prove his innocence if given the opportunity. Their voices faded as they were removed from the villa, leaving a stunned silence behind. I turned to face our guests, many of whom were friends, of the family who had known me since childhood. "I apologize for the dramatic evening. As you can see, the engagement is off. Please stay and enjoy the food and music. Consider it a celebration of truth rather than marriage." Gradually, the party resumed, though with a different energy, guests whispering among themselves as they processed what they had witnessed. Several people approached to offer support, while others slipped away quietly, uncomfortable with the public nature of the disgrace they had witnessed. My family surrounded me protectively, forming a buffer between me and the curious questions. Nico squeezed my shoulder, pride evident in his eyes. "You were magnificent." "We all were," I replied, looking at each of them with overwhelming gratitude. I couldn't have done this without you. Sophia kissed my cheek. Justice served at last, Tesoro. How do you feel? I considered the question, searching for the right words to describe the complex emotions swirling within me. Free, I finally said. I feel free. Later that night, after the last guests had departed and the villa stood quiet under the stars, we gathered in Sophia's garden. Uncle Tiago poured aged whiskey into crystal glasses, passing them around our small circle. To justice, he toasted, and to family. We clinked glasses, the night air cool against my skin, the weight of 16 years of pain finally lifting from my shoulders. What happens now? I asked. With the evidence? The fraud charges have already been filed, Uncle Tiago explained. The financial crimes alone will keep Alessio occupied for years. As for Ilara, breaking and entering, fabrication of evidence, conspiracy to commit fraud, they'll both face consequences well beyond social humiliation. And you? Sophia asked, studying my face. What will you do now that you're free of them? I looked up at the stars, the same stars that had witnessed my death in another lifetime. Live, I said simply. Really live this time. Nico raised his glass again, to Valentina's second chance. As we drank to my future, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced since awakening in this reborn life. For the first time, I was truly free to write my own story, unburdened by the shadows of betrayal that had haunted me across lifetimes. Alessio and Ilara had tried to frame me, to paint me as unstable and dangerous, but they never suspected that I had returned with perfect knowledge of their scheme, with a family who remembered everything, silently watching and waiting for the perfect moment to expose them. Justice, as grandmother Sophia had promised, was worth waiting for. The aftermath of the engagement party unfolded with beautiful precision. Uncle Tiago's legal groundwork ensured the fraud charges against Alessio were filed before dawn the next day. By the time I awoke, the news had already spread through our social circles, the whispers and shocked conversations creating ripples that would eventually reach every corner of the art world. I spent the week after the party in a strange state of limbo, oscillating between euphoric relief and quiet contemplation. For so long, my focus had been on exposing Alessio and Ilara that I had given little thought to what would come after. Now, with justice in motion, I found myself facing a future unburdened by the weight of their betrayal. 2 weeks after the engagement party, Uncle Tiago called a family meeting to update us on the legal proceedings. His study was warm with afternoon sunlight as we gathered around his desk, the familiar scent of leather books and coffee creating a sense of security. The evidence was overwhelming, he explained, spreading documents across the polished surface. Alessio has been charged with multiple counts of fraud, both related to his financial dealings with you, Valentina, and separate schemes involving the gallery. His investors have all withdrawn support. Nico leaned forward. And Ilara? Breaking and entering, conspiracy to commit fraud, falsification of evidence. She's attempting to portray herself as an unwitting accomplice manipulated by Alessio, but the recordings make it clear she was an equal partner. I traced my finger along the edge of a legal brief. Will any of this go to trial? Uncle Tiago shook his head. I doubt it. There's too much evidence against them. Their lawyers will likely advise them to accept plea deals. Less public humiliation that way. Sophia poured more tea into delicate cups. And what of their reputations? In tatters, Nico confirmed with grim satisfaction. I've been monitoring social media and industry publications. The gallery is finished. Former clients are distancing themselves. No one will work with either of them again. I should have felt vindicated, but instead, a hollow ache filled my chest. Not regret, exactly, but awareness of the waste of it all. They destroyed themselves for money, for greed. People often do, Sophia said softly. 6 months after the engagement party, reports reached us that Alessio and Alara had left the city, attempting to rebuild their lives elsewhere. According to Nico's sources, they had relocated to a coastal town hundreds of miles away, where Alessio was trying to establish connections with smaller galleries, and Alara had found work as an art consultant. What they discovered, however, was that the Costa family's influence ran deeper than they had imagined. Whenever Alessio approached potential business partners, they mysteriously withdrew interest. Alara would secure clients only to have them cancel after receiving anonymous information about her past. Their professional rehabilitation failed at every turn. I did not orchestrate these consequences directly, but I did not discourage my family's quiet interference either. Justice, once set in motion, had its own momentum. The most unexpected call came nearly a year after our confrontation. I was in my studio, restoring a delicate 18th century landscape, when my phone rang with an unknown number. Valentina. Alessio's voice was ragged, lacking the smooth charm that had once characterized it. Please don't hang up. I remained silent, suddenly transported back to my previous life, when a similar call had led to reconciliation and, ultimately, deeper betrayal. I know I have no right to ask for anything, he continued, desperation evident in every word. But I need you to know that Alara manipulated me. She had information about my finances, my past. She threatened me. I truly loved you. The lies were so familiar they almost made me laugh. In my previous life, I had believed this exact speech, accepted his tears as genuine remorse rather than calculating manipulation. Funny, I replied, my voice cool. That's exactly what Alara says. About you. What? She called last week, said you coerced her, that she was afraid of you, that she only went along with the scheme because you threatened her family. Silence stretched between us before he spoke again, his voice hardening. She always was a convincing liar. Yes, she was. Nearly as good as you. I set down my brush. You destroyed each other in the end, just as I knew you would. I hung up, blocking his number with methodical precision. Later, I learned from Nico that Alessio and Alara had indeed turned on each other, each blaming the other for their downfall as they spiraled into increasingly desperate circumstances. Meanwhile, my own life blossomed in unexpected ways. Free from the shadow of betrayal that had defined my previous existence, I found myself noticing people and opportunities I had overlooked before. The most significant was Marco Ferraro, an art conservator who had consulted on several projects at the museum where I now worked. In my previous life, I had barely registered his existence, too consumed by Alessio to notice his quiet intelligence and genuine passion for art restoration. This time, when he invited me for coffee to discuss a collaborative project, I accepted. One coffee became weekly meetings, which evolved into dinners and long walks through the old city. His attraction to me was evident but patient, never presumptuous or demanding. You're different from other people I've met in this field, I told him one evening as we shared wine on a terrace overlooking the river. There's no performance with you. He smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. Life's too short for performances. I prefer honesty, even when it's imperfect. 6 months into our relationship, I finally told Marco a version of the truth. Not about being reborn, of course, but about Alessio and Alara's betrayal, the elaborate scheme my family had orchestrated to expose them. That explains so much, he said, taking my hand across the table. The guardedness I sometimes see in you, the way your family watches over you so protectively. Does it frighten you? I asked, suddenly vulnerable. Knowing what happened? No. His eyes held mine steadily. It makes me admire your strength. and it makes me want to prove every day that real love exists without manipulation or agenda. On my 35th birthday, 1 year passed when I had died in my previous life, I visited Sophia in the family garden. The olive tree spread its ancient branches above us as we shared pastries and strong coffee in the morning light. "I've been wondering something," I said, watching a butterfly alight on a nearby flower. "Was our rebirth just chance? A cosmic accident?" Sophia smiled mysteriously, dusting sugar from her fingers. "The Costa family has a blessing that appears when injustice threatens to consume us. Look at these." From a cedar chest beside her chair, she withdrew leather albums I had never seen before. Inside were photographs spanning generations, sepia to color, formal portraits to casual snapshots. As she turned the pages, I noticed patterns that made my breath catch, identical poses decades apart, familiar expressions on ancestral faces. "This is great-grandmother Amelia," Sophia explained, pointing to a stern-faced woman in 1890s attire. "And this is the same woman, in 1925, 30 years younger than she appears in the first photo." Page after page revealed similar anomalies, subtle but unmistakable once pointed out. Relatives who appeared to age backwards in sequential photos, expressions that held too much knowledge for their years. Family groups where everyone's eyes reflected the same ancient awareness. "We're not the first to be reborn," Sophia whispered, closing the album gently, "and perhaps not the last. But why? What's the purpose?" She shrugged, her eyes distant. "To right wrongs, to reclaim stolen futures, to ensure justice prevails, even when it must span lifetimes to do so." At my new gallery opening the following spring, I stood surrounded by genuine love, my family, Marco, friends who appreciated my true self. The exhibition showcased restored works alongside my own creations, a blending of preservation and innovation that had become my signature. Through the window, I spotted a familiar figure watching from across the street. Alessio, haggard and diminished, observed the crowd celebrating my success. Our eyes met briefly. I felt no hatred, no anger, only a distant pity for a man who had destroyed himself through his own greed. I gave him the slightest smile, not of cruelty but of closure, then turned back to my reclaimed life without a second glance. Marco appeared at my side, offering a glass of champagne and a warm smile that reached his eyes. "Happy?" he asked simply. I looked around at the gallery, at my family chatting with guests, at the art that represented not just my talent, but my authentic vision, unburdened by manipulation or control. "Yes," I answered truthfully, "completely." As Marco led me toward a group of admirers eager to discuss my technique, I felt the weight of 2 lifetimes settle into perfect balance. The woman I had been, the woman I became through suffering, and the woman I was now creating myself to be, all existed within me simultaneously. Sometimes justice requires patience that spans beyond a single lifetime. Sometimes the universe itself conspires to ensure that those who cause suffering eventually face their reckoning. And sometimes, being reborn means more than just returning to life. It means discovering what living truly means when freed from the shadows of betrayal.